Hello everyone and welcome to our channel Target 360 Biology for NEET, and this is the part 1 of the one shot series for the living world. Okay, the very first chapter of class 11th biology living world for NEET students. Today we will be discussing the first part, that is about the characteristics of life. That is 4 characteristics have been mentioned in our NCERT, and along we'll be discussing a small topic related with the diversity in living world, the topic before binomial nomenclature. Clear? So this should be the part 1 of this chapter. So let's get into this chapter. So don't forget to hit the like button, do share it with your friends and subscribe the amazing platform for more NEET biology contents. So let's get started with this very first topic, that is living. So first of all, we have to discuss about what is living. What does the term living refers to? Yes, let me increase the thickness of the pen. Yes. So in our NCERT, before you begin reading out the NCERT of this chapter, that is beginning of the NCERT, that is before the starting of this chapter, there you have a beautiful picture of Ernest Mayr, who is known as the Darwin of the 20th century. You have a picture of him and a short description or a short paragraph based upon his contributions towards the biology. So you must make sure that you must read each and every point in that clearly, especially those which are given in bold letters or if it is given in italics. Those topics are very important. You must just go through that content as well before you enter and read the chapter of living world. So as you come on to the chapter, the living world, in the beginning, that is during the initial beginning, you will have the topic about, or you will have the curiosity questions like what is living, what is non-living, what are the characteristics that make a body living, and what are those characters that's why we call a body as a non-living, right? So right now, all of you hearing about this will be very much familiar about the same, why we call a living organism as living thing or that have life, or why we call them as non-living things. Okay, because we all have learned all these topics earlier itself, right? So I hope everybody might have learned all these chapters, especially the chapter living world, because this is the very first chapter that your school is going to take for you. Okay, so the very first topic, that is about what is living. In this chapter we have to discuss about some of the characteristics that why we call a particular object as living being or non-living being. First of all, talking about what is a living being, you have to pay attention towards that is an object that can exhibit growth or that show development or that show very important property, that is that show responsiveness, especially that can be responsiveness to touch or that can show responsiveness to light, water, soil. For example, you might have also seen those plants or certain plants have the property of showing phenomenon, or they show phototropic movements, they show nastic movements, right? That is movement towards the light, movement towards the fingers, that is towards a touch, not fingers, towards a touch, then towards light source, towards gravity, then hydrotrophic movement, etc. For example, when we talk about the plants Mimosa putica, that is the touch me not plant, that show thigmotrophic movement, that is on touching, it leaves will droop out, right? It will just curl inwards. That is a type of responsiveness or a consciousness that the plant is showing. Okay, that an object should show the property of adaptation and also the property of reproduction is very important. So even though you will learn that is all these properties, but there are so many kinds of exceptions. We cannot just exclusively call that growth and reproduction are the defining property. No, non-living objects also show growth if we take some particular points as a criteria for growth. Suppose when I tell you what is growth, if I ask you, you will suddenly reply to me like telling that increase in the height is growth, increase in the width is growth, Increase in the mass is growth, or increase in the number is growth, especially in a population. For example, in a population, you will see that a lot of people or a lot of new organisms are being added up. So you will call that particular thing as a growth rate. So the organisms are growing or increasing there. So that can be also termed as a growth. So exactly if I ask you about the same, that is, if I ask you that whether a rock that breaks up into fragments, that's also a kind of growth, right? Reproduction can also be seen, that is, it divides itself into multiple fragments. So we have exceptions, we will be moving on to that. So in this chapter, before, let me take out a blank slide in order to describe about the same. So in this chapter, we have to mainly study about 4 different characters. Even though in certain books like Pradeep, then Dinesh publication, MTG, everything, you will find 10 or 12 character, but as per our NCRT, we must study only what? We must study only the characters, that is, which have been mentioned in the NCRT. That is, first character that have been mentioned in the NCRT is about the growth. Second character which you can tell that have been mentioned in the NCRT is the reproduction. Third character is the metabolism. And fourth one is the response. A response to an external stimulus. So if as soon as I complete this, everybody know which all are the defining property. The most important defining property is a perspection, that is to touch, respond to the external stimulus, or to be self-conscious about touch or heat or everything. Okay, should be self-conscious about the surrounding. So if in the NEET examination, if an option or if a question comes like which of the following is the most important factor that determines whether a body is living or not, you have this question as AIPMT 2012. AIPMT 2012, you have this question. There the option was perspection to the surroundings. So if all these 4 options are given in your NCRT, even the metabolism, in some cases it have been included as a living character. But if the option contains something which is relevant, that is pertaining to the responsiveness, then you must definitely go with that option, or that option which gives you an appropriate answer. Okay, sometimes in NEET examination, which a problem that everybody will face is that you'll come across certain options which will be very close to each other, which may differ only in certain words. As we move forward, I will show you everything. Okay. So we come across certain questions in right now. You have the CBSE board exams as term 1 MCQ type also. So this must be definitely used there as well. So this should be taken as a one-shot revision for the term 1 CBSE exam as well. Okay, so when you come across such questions where you have more than one option, as you feel like it is the correct option for this question, or it is given in the NCRT, then you must go to those options. You must go and bubble those options which have been most appropriate in according to that question or as per the context of that question. Clear? Or suppose if you are given 2 options, and that 2 options can be the correct answer for a single question given in the question paper, you must think which of the following 2 points have been mentioned in the NCRT. If option number C is the point which have been, or the statement that have been mentioned in the NCRT, and D have been not been mentioned in the NCRT, even though if D is correct, you will get the point if you write C as the answer, because you are asked to study NCRT. Or NTA, National Testing Agency, have prescribed the syllabus for you that is according to the biology NCRT only. So let's get into one by one, and in certain parts you will learn about cell organization as well. Okay, you will learn about cell organization as well in certain areas. So anyway, let's get back. Clear, everybody? So first of all, let's have a short look on about the cell structure. Clear? Yes. So cell structure can be a defining property of living beings, but as it is not mentioned in the NCERT, we are not paying too much attention towards that. Okay, a single sentence have been mentioned, that is all. What is it mentioned in the NCERT? Cellular organizations of living beings is a defining property. So if option like cellular structure also comes in the option, you can go with that also, because that's also correct. Okay, but mostly if you check out the question paper, you won't see this option. You will see only growth, reproduction, then metabolism, and the other one, that is a response to external stimulus. So you must go with the appropriate option, that is the external stimulus. Clear? That is, we know that a particular organism is either made up of a single cell. We have been learning from our lower classes itself, that is those organisms that have been made up of one cell, or those organisms that have been made up of many cells. So what do we call those organisms which have been made up of a single cell? Just tell me on the chat box, everybody. What do we call those organisms which are made up of only a single cell? Yes, it's very easy. That is the unicellular organisms like amoeba, paramecium, right? Unicellular organism. And those organisms which have been made up of many cells, you will call them as the multicellular organism. Clear? So that have been mentioned as a second line. All living organisms are made up of one, that is unicellular, or more cell. If it is more cell, then you will call them as a multicellular, like a plant cell, then an animal cell, and all. Clear? So this is the diagram for a animal cell. Okay, this is the diagram for an animal cell. And this is the diagram for a plant cell. Just can I ask you a general question? Can anyone tell me? Don't tell me about the property of the cell wall, because they have not differentiated like cell membrane, cell wall. Both they are showing two layers. Okay. So simply looking at this diagram, can you just tell me how I distinguish this as an animal cell and a plant cell? I'll give you 5 seconds to answer this question. Very silly question and a very easy question. Just tell me how I identified the cell number 1, that is this cell, as animal cell, and how I identified this cell as a plant cell. Yes, just tell me, everyone. Just check. Right from our lower classes onwards, we have been studying that in plant. 1 second, yes. In plant cell, the nucleus will be pushed on to the periphery, right? Look, this is the nucleus. So nucleus have been pushed on to the periphery, and the central portion is occupied by the vacuole. Okay, the central portion have been occupied by the large vacuole. So this is the vacuole. Right, so this is the vacuole which occupies the central position. Whereas in animal cell, if the vacuoles are present also, they will be like small vesicles or small tubules, right? So this is how I distinguished. So another distinguishing feature was that as well. Okay, clear? Yes. Let's move on. Next character is the metabolism. Next character is the metabolism. So metabolism can also be considered as a defining property. Okay, metabolism can also be defined as told as a defining property. But in certain cases, that is, you might have also learned about the in vitro fertilization techniques, right? You might have learned about the IVF or in vitro fertilization techniques, right? So in vitro fertilization, they are isolated metabolic reaction which are not living things, but they are living biological reaction. Why? Because they can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems. In the simulated conditions in the laboratory, you can allow the cells to fuse together. Okay, you can allow the cells to fuse together. Okay, so since the metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems, at all times you cannot say that they are the characteristics of living beings only. And let me tell you the important definition of metabolism, that is, it is a sum total of all biochemical reaction taking place inside a living system. Important definition, expecting this kind of questions in the upcoming NEET exam as well. Because in 2020, 2021 NEET and all, they have given you the definition and have asked you to identify the term. Okay. This year they have asked you about the standing state and standing crop from class 12. Okay, a topic from biodiversity, not biodiversity, from the chapter ecosystem of class 12. Okay. For NEET 2022 students will be coming across the class 12 one-shot sessions as well. Clear? So, the sum total of all biochemical reaction that is taking place inside a living system, you will call them as the metabolism. Clear? So, it can be defined or it can be a defining property, but at all cases, if the options, it depends upon the option which you have to answer a question. That is, just check out whether the option contains any points pertaining to the responsiveness to stimulus or self-consciousness or anything. And metabolism is also given there. Then you have to go with the most appropriate option, that is the option that is related with the self-consciousness. Clear? But if the option contains like growth, reproduction, metabolism, then they have given you like some options, excretion or something, then among the four options, metabolism is the most accurate. So at that point of time, you can go with the metabolism. Okay. So such kinds of confusing questions won't be asked. If such kinds of questions are asked, they'll give you the appropriate options only. And once that is one important thing as well, that is metabolism can be like building up or breaking down. Okay, building up or breaking down. That is building up process, you will call them anabolism. And the breaking down process, you will call them as the catabolism. Okay, the building up process, that is a synthesis process, you will call them as the anabolism, and the breaking down process, you will call them as the catabolism. That's once again term you can, one more term that you can use is catabolism is a destructive process, whereas anabolism is a constructive process. Anabolism is a constructive process. So let's get into those slides as well. Clear? Yes. So in this diagram, I have included a very important diagram which asks you to understand these two processes. That is, what is anabolism and what is catabolism? Guys, what is photosynthesis? Just tell me, just recall the definition in your mind. You won't get time to type out that. What is photosynthesis? That is using different various components. Suppose this is carbon dioxide, you imagine. This is water, or this is light molecule, you imagine. Okay. So all these different small molecules have been combined together to form a large molecule. Am I right or not from the diagram? These simple monomers or these simple molecules have been combined together to produce what? A large molecule. Whereas just think about the process of respiration. Using oxygen, the glucose or the starch inside our body is broken down into simple, that is simple molecules, and carbon dioxide and water have been released out. So this is the large molecule. Imagine this is to be starch or glucose. Okay, this have been starch or glucose, and this have been broken down into simple molecules, for example, like carbon dioxide, then a molecule X, molecule Y. So it is a breaking down process. Okay, breaking down into small components. So what is anabolism? It is a set of metabolic pathway that can synthesize larger molecule. And what is catabolism? Set of metabolic pathway that break down large molecules into simple molecule. Hope it's perfectly clear for everyone. Clear? Then let's move on to the term that is the growth. So what was growth? So what does the term growth refers to? Growth means it is the irreversible increase in the mass of individuals. Guys, in this I have included short points. Soon after today we'll be discussing only a small topic. So after this class itself, please read NCRT. Okay. Please, it's a humble request to everybody. Please read NCRT because NCRT based questions only are going to come. In the first page of the chapter Living World, you will see a very important line. Please highlight that if you have your NCRT right now. Below the page, that is towards the end of the page, all living organisms grow. Increase in mass, increase in number are the twin characteristics of growth. Increase in mass and increase in number are the twin character of growth. Very important. Okay. And what is meant by this term? This may be a new term for everyone. That is accretion. What do you mean by accretion? That is, suppose a mountain or a stone or a crystal, it have been accumulated. That is a simply placed stone have been accumulated with a large amount of soil or some smaller rocks or whatever. Okay. So that can be called as accretion. That is, non-living articles can increase in size. So the growth which have been, or the growth which is seen in the non-living organisms can be termed, or you can use the term as accretion. Clear? Done? Yes. So the next one, that is, so mountains will grow. Mountains do grow, right? Then in case of animals, growth stops after a particular period of time. That is, after the growth phase, growth stops. Okay. Whereas in plants, till the end of the plant, that is till the end of the life cycle of the plant keeps on growing. You cannot, due to some deficiency, they will get stunted, but despite all those deficiency syndromes keeping aside, you will find that the plant keeps on increasing in length or increasing girth. If it is a dicot plant, we'll learn about that. Okay. Yes. So growth cannot be defined. Okay. Growth cannot be defined as a living property or cannot be used as a defining property of living organism. Clear? Yes. Next, let's discuss. Before we discuss, I have told some important points as well. So let me tell about those points as well. Multicellular organisms increase its mass by cell division. So we have studied, or we will be studying, the chapter cell cycle and cell division. There you will learn how this multicellular organism shows its growth. In plants, the growth continues throughout their lifespan. Okay, in plants, the growth continues throughout their lifespan. Whereas in animals, the growth is only up to a certain age. Very important. Cell division occurs to replace lost cell. Can anybody just name a particular structure inside our body? Okay. Future medicos, right? So can anybody just tell me a structure present in the human body that does not have the capability, or those cells does not have the capability of cell division? A particular kind of a cell or a functional unit. I'm giving a specific clue for that. A functional unit of a particular system of a body that does not have a particular mechanism of cell division. If you are not getting it also, let me give you another clue, that is centrosome is absent in that particular structure. Which is that structure? Yes. Hope You know the answer, that is, it is the nerve cell. Okay, it is a nerve cell, or the scientific or the biological term, you will call them as what? You will call them as the neurons, nerve cells or neurons. Clear? Yes. So let's continue with the next property, that is the reproduction. Okay, reproduction will be the next property. Reproduction means it is a formation of new individuals of the same kind. So we'll learn about this reproduction as a specific unit next year, that is in class 12. Okay. That is, you learn about two types of reproduction are there, that is the sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. What is sexual reproduction? Two different parents are required. Whereas in asexual reproduction, only a single parent is required. Am I right or wrong? Right. Yes. So in asexually means they require only a single parent, whereas sexually means they require more than one parent. Clear? Yes. But can you call reproduction as a defining property? No, you cannot call reproduction as a defining property of living organism. Why you cannot call them as a defining property? Because you cannot say that all living organisms reproduce. For example, there are exceptions like mules, worker honeybee, then infertile human couple, even though these all organisms are living. Am I right? These all organisms can be considered as living things only. They have life. But if we take reproduction as a character, mules, worker honeybee, and infertile human couples are non-living things. Is it true? No. So that truly implies, or that specifically implies, that reproduction is not a defining property. A very important point have been mentioned in the NCERT, that is unicellular organisms like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba. That is the second paragraph of the second page of Living World. Under the topic reproduction, towards the 506 lines below, you will find that the fungi, filamentous algae and protonema of mosses all multiply by fragmentation. Very important previous year question. When it comes into unicellular organisms like amoeba, bacteria, unicellular algae, reproduction is synonymous with growth, right? Reproduction is synonymous with growth. What is growth in case of unicellular organisms? Suppose in amoeba, let me show you a very great example. You have to tell me on the chat box. In amoeba, if I tell this is the parent amoeba, okay, this is the parent amoeba, it will split up into two. That is, it will undergo like this, right? It will grow like this, expanding its body, expanding its nucleus as well, right? Expanding its nucleus as well. So can anyone just name me whether this process illustrated over here is growth or reproduction? So this parent have been divided into two daughter cells. So that means it is reproduction. Whereas this organism grows, increase in mass or increase in the length. So that can be called as a growth. So what is in unicellular algae, fungus and unicellular algae, bacteria and amoeba, you can call that growth and reproduction are synonymous to each other. Very important. AIMS previous year and NEET previous year question. Okay. The last and the final property, which is the consciousness. Okay. Consciousness means it is the awareness of the surrounding. It is the awareness of the surrounding and the response to the external stimulus. It can be a physical stimulus, it can be a biological or a chemical stimulus. Therefore, it can be defining property. It can be the defining property of living organism. Clear? It can be the defining property of all living organism. Very important point. Done? Yes. So either if the stimulus is physical or it is chemical or it is biological, consciousness can be called as a defining property of all living organism. And in addition to all those other organisms, human beings have a property of awareness of the self. That is, self-consciousness is an important property of living organism. Clear? Look, light, then touch, insect, animals. So this animals, that is a monkeys, is coming under the class. Animals, it's have been evolved. Humans have been evolved from this monkeys, right? So they have the property of self-consciousness. That is, once you touch a hot body, once you touch a hot vessel, the second time you will be feared or you will be staying away from that particular thing again to touch into that hot body again, because you know what will be the response or what will be the reaction made inside your body, right? So that's all about this consciousness. Next, let's move on to the topic of diversity in the living world. Okay, that's the next topic mentioned in the NCERT. So what is actually biodiversity? This is a very simple chapter. Biodiversity refers to the number and the type of organism, present on the earth. It can differ in morphology, size, color, anatomy, habits, and habitats. You will find variety of plants, you will find variety of animals. Sometimes if I might have noticed a specific plant, that plant might not have been seen by you, right? You might have seen a plant that have not been in my notice. So they differ. So it's a vast variety of plants have been. If you visit a botanical garden, you will be amazed to see a large number of plants. Just comment below how many of you have been to a botanical garden. Yes? Yes. So let's discuss this. Have been just simply mentioned in the NCERT. So a very important thing which have been mentioned in the NCERT is this particular point, very important, whereas the rest everything have been included in the slides just for your general information. You must study, you must clearly understand, okay? You must clearly understand this point. That is a number of species described as 1.7 to 1.8 million. It have been given in the first paragraph under the topic 1.2 of your NCERT. 1.7 to 1.8 million species have been described so far. So in that, you can tell like the animals are 1.25 million, insects are 1.025 million, and plants are 0.5 million. Okay, guys, don't need to worry about these things. Okay, don't pay attention towards these. You must pay attention towards this number only. That is 1.7 to 1.8 million. Clear? Yes, that have been mentioned in the NCERT. Then as we move, you know what is systematics and what are the things that come under systematics. That is, there is a branch of biology which is termed as taxonomy. There's a branch of biology which have been termed as taxonomy, right? So under this heading taxonomy, what all things you will study? You will first of all identify an organism, you will then characterize that, then you will classify that, and finally you will nomenclate or you will name that particular organism. So the branch of biology which helps in the identification, classification, and nomenclature. That is, guys, if it is in case of plants, a particular organization will name that. That is ICBN. You must study the full form from the NCERT. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. Okay, that's 4 is very important. In the option, they might give you International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. It is a wrong. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature is the correct one. Whereas, if you check it into animals, a particular organization is there, ICZN. International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Code of Zoological for Botanical, very important. Okay, you have bacterial department, you have virology department, you have cultivated crops department. They are not mentioned in the NCERT, so we must pay attention towards the NCERT portion only. Clear? So in the description or the basics of systematic study, you will first of all study about the description or some of the characters. Then you will identify that, then you will classify, and finally you will name that, or you will undergo its name nomenclature. Before we get into that, let me tell you about that is what is taxonomy. It is the identification, classification, and nomenclature of the organism. In certain textbook, before this identification, you will find characterization as well. So if an option contains characterization, you will have to go with the order: characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature. Clear? Yes. So it is based, that is, before we are moving on, that is, you will find the father of zoology or the father of biology is also Aristotle. Theophrastus is the father of botany, and Linnaeus is the father of taxonomy. Also, he is named as the father of two kingdom system of classification. Okay, he is considered as the father of two kingdom system of classification. And he is also concerned with the book that he have written. Okay. Systema Naturae is a book which have been written by Carl Linnaeus. You must pay attention towards the spelling also of the Carl Linnaeus. That is in a previous year AIMS examination, I think. Okay, don't, not to my correct knowledge, but previous year AIMS question itself, I think. They have been asked you, Carl Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus. So guys, just comment me on the chat box whether the correct term is option A, B, C, or D. Whether it is Carl Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus, or Carolus Linnaeus. Whether it is K or C. Yes, without any doubt, you will say that is Carolus Linnaeus. So whenever you are studying, you must study it as Carolus Linnaeus. Okay, Carolus Linnaeus. That's fine. Clear. So it may be based on external and internal structure of the cell, developmental process, and ecological information. These have not been mentioned in the NCERT, these factors, but just to pay your attention towards that. Okay, so next is the properties that we are going to study. That is 4 major basic properties are there. First one is the characterization. Second one is the identification. Third one is the classification. And fourth one is the nomenclature. So guys, in a simple word, I'll tell you. I come across a particular organism. First of all, I will examine that organism. That is, what are the features, whether it is having a cell wall, whether it is having green in color, whether it is having this. Okay, not the external only, but the internal features as well. First, then I would identify its character. So understanding the characters of the organism, both external and internal structure, even the cell structure and development processes are even learned under this particular class. After I characterize that, then I am going to identify under which phylum is an organism coming under. Suppose if I get certain information like it is having a chitinous exoskeleton, it is having a jointed appendages, their body have been divided, they are segmented. Then these are the characters which we have learned in the animal kingdom chapter for what? Jointed appendages. Comes under the phylum Arthropoda, right? Then whenever I'm that is going through the internal feature, I have found that excretory organs, like either it can be a Malpighian tubules or uricose gland or a green gland, anything. That's I found an excretory organ which have been similar in a cockroach or a similar in a prawn or a spider or a centipede or a millipede. Then I would identify that organism as what? An arthropoda. So then I'm going to give the correct description of the organism. Then I'm going to classify. In arthropoda itself, you will find different classes like crustacea. Then insecta, class insecta is there. Myriapoda is there, right? So based upon these, I'll teach you in the chapter Animal Kingdom. Okay, so don't worry. So here, then you are going to classify those things. After we classify those organisms, then we finally are going to name that scientifically. Since I have discovered, I'll be using my term or my name after that particular organism, that is XYZ, then I'll use my name. That is, you might have learned, that is Mangifera indica Lin. Why Lin is being used? Because Carl Linnaeus discovered the scientific name or proposed the scientific name. So we'll learn about the scientific names and everything in the upcoming lecture. Okay. So that marks the end of this part 1 lecture of Living World. We will stay tuned and we will continue with the part 2, that is where we have to discuss about the binomial nomenclature, then the taxonomical categories, and also the taxonomical age. So read the NCERT very carefully. After we complete this, I'm planning to take out the NCERT based 30 questions, maybe in the form of a Slido live session, in a live quiz, or maybe we'll be taking it as a test, okay, in the NEET pattern, or we'll be doing it as a session only, okay, section as well, okay. And after that, we'll be doing the NCERT exemplar, that is 15 to 20 questions have been given as the NCERT exemplar for each chapters. So you'll be doing the NCERT exemplar problems as well, because these are important for your term 1. Okay, term 1 CBSE board as well as for your NEET exam. So stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. See you with the part 2 lecture very soon tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.